tempted to make a face at you. It'll be fine.
All right.
Don't so worry.
So do you have an attendance sheet here?
They do. They have it.
I think it is. I don't think that just yes, we are now.
Talks this week about how to do business in the DNS industry. But first we want to introduce ourselves and give you a chance to introduce yourself as well. I'll start. So as I said, I live in Boston, very cold, a lot of snow back home this year. So we had the most snowfall ever in Boston in recorded time. So there's been a lot of snow in Boston. And it's just starting to melt. And so I have two ICANN registrars. My main one is Encirca, which is my main retail registrar. I have a second one called NameShare, which does a lot of work with what are called .brand, which we'll talk about this week. I'm involved in a country code top-level registry for the country of Palau, which is in the Pacific Ocean. My background, I'm a mechanical engineer by training. I used to make jet engines for a living and do factory automation in the jet engine business. Over to you, Michaela.
Thanks, Tom. Michaela Nayland. I'm the CEO and founder of Black Knight. We're a registrar and hosting provider in Ireland. We're the largest hosting provider in Ireland. Personally, I've been involved with a lot of kind of internet stuff for the last 15, 20 years. Unlike Tom, I don't have a technical background. My background is more in languages and other things. These days I spend a lot of my time dealing with internet stuff, policy, marketing, all that kind of thing. So I'm involved with .eu. I'm on the chair of the Registrar Advisory Board for .eu. Both of us are on the .us TLD Stakeholder Council. I'm also the chair of the Registrar Stakeholder Group within ICANN, and I can bore you to death about all sorts of things to do with policy. But before going further, are all of you speak English? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. If you have a problem understanding either of us, please tell us, because I'm Irish, so I speak very, very quickly. He's American. I'll just leave it like that. So if there's stuff that you don't understand, please let us know, because we don't mind read very well. Well, I don't. Do you mind read?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Okay, he mind reads.
I can read body language.
Okay, he'll behave. So as Tom said, we're going to go through a bunch of different things. We have a plan of topics we want to cover, but it's also up to what you want to talk about. So we're going to, try to move things towards what you're interested in. Back to you, Tom.
Thank you. So a few other things I want to do. The agenda is at a very high level. We're going to start with an overview of what DNS is, because we don't know what your background is, so we'll make sure we're all on the same page regarding that. We'll talk a little bit about this group called ICANN and the role they play in the industry, because it is a somewhat regulated industry. But then we want to spend a day on the commercial side the industry itself, who are the registries, registrars, the other service providers. We'll spend a lot of time on marketing. So we have some great examples, real life examples of marketing plans, sales plans, and so you can see how businesses are doing it today in the industry. We'll talk a lot about operations, and what we mean by that are the legal issues that you face that are unique to this industry, the finance issues, how to prepare a business plan and revenue forecast and budget. And then finally, on the last day, we'll try to bring it all together and do some brainstorming about how you can perhaps build or grow your business back home. We want to do a few, we want to make sure this whole week is very interactive. We want to give you folks a chance to also present who you are. And so we want to do this in several different ways. First of all, every morning, we'll invite anyone who wants to stand up and do something called an elevator pitch.
Do you know what an elevator pitch is?
Anyone here know what an elevator pitch is?
Okay.
So this concept is, if you have a new product idea or business idea, and you get on an elevator.
You know what an elevator is? A lift?
They know what
Picture
an
we
elevator
understand
is.
the word, right?
So you get on an elevator, and in steps into the elevator with you a very wealthy investor. And so you only have the time it takes for you to ride that elevator, 60 seconds. And in 60 seconds, you have to tell him what is your business idea, and make it so compelling that he'll write out a check to you to invest in your business. All right?
So the thing with the elevator pitch is you've got to keep it concise, tight. You don't want to spend 10 minutes. You've got 1 minute.
You have 1 minute. So we're going to invite anyone who wants to get up and give an elevator speech this morning.
So Tom, do Encirca.
So Encirca is an ICANN registrar, but we're not a GoDaddy, right? We specialize in the restricted top-level domains. And so .travel, .jobs, .bank, .realtor, anyone that wants to make sure they're only serving a particular audience, that's our specialty in the marketplace. And so we don't charge $10 for a domain name. .bank is going for $1,000 a domain name. So that's the market that Encirca focuses on. How about Black Knight?
Okay, so Black Knight, we're a hosting company. We're based in Ireland. We do domains. We do hosting for small businesses through to Fortune 500 companies. Similar to Encirca, we're not the cheapest. We're not going to try to do everything for free, but we focus on providing good quality service. Come, buy things from us.
So we're going to invite you in a second. Anyone who wants to stand up now and do an elevator pitch, you're welcome to do that. If you want to think about it, you can do it tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning. We're going to do it every morning. All right? We're going to have an elevator pitch time for everyone. The other thing we want to do is we all break for lunch at 1:30 for an hour. We would like to do what are called table topics. And so if you have a particular interest, you might care about registries, CCTLD registries, you might care about being a domain name reseller. We'll have table topics so you can have lunch with the people that share that interest. And so you can talk about that particular interest during lunch. At the end of the day, before we break for the day, we want to have breakout sessions. And again, those breakout sessions will have a moderator and focus on one topic: doing business in the local economy, how your CCTLD might compete with your GTLD. So we'll pick topics and people can, again, go to the particular breakout session they're interested in. And so we'll do that. That's at the end of every day we'll do that. And then we'll regroup and recap what's been discussed for the day. There is a feedback form that we're going to ask you to fill out. Has that been distributed?
No.
Not yet? Okay, so we'll make sure we get that to you. We are going to ask that at the end of every day you update that feedback form so we get some daily feedback on how things are going. So, elevator pitch. Does anyone want to stand up now and talk about, in fact, you know what, we're going to go around, we'll let you introduce yourself. And as part of that, you can say, hey, I've got a great business idea, here's what it's going to be. So we can come back to you later this week and explore what your business idea is, or if you have a new product idea for your existing business, that's okay too. But why don't we go around and have everyone introduce themselves and explain why you're here, what your background is, and what you hope to get out of this week for the class. Can we start with the front row?
My name is Yahya from EG University. My background is technical and accounting. Also, I graduated from public mass communication.
And my name is Dina Barakat. I'm working for the DNS registry. I'm vice director for the UN Egyptian Universities Network. My background was technical, but around 10 years ago, I'm working with the logistics and sometimes with the policies, rules, everything regarding the process itself of certification.
Let me stand up. I'm Beher Asmat. I'm with ICANN. I come from Egypt. I live in Egypt. And I've been with ICANN for 9 years today. I do stakeholder engagement in the Middle East. And maybe during break I can explain to you what stakeholder engagement is. And I'm here today. Yeah, I'm holding the stakes. So
if you want a good steak dinner, you talk to him.
And I'm here today because this workshop today, or this course, is one in a series of sessions that we plan to organize together with the NTRA, National Telecom Regulatory Authority in Egypt, as part of the project of building an entrepreneurship center on domain names and DNS industry in Egypt to serve this industry and support this industry in Africa and the Middle East. So we start today with the course on business, DNS business development. Next week we're having another course on registry best practices. It's going to be run by urit.eu. We have also a technical track that will cover technical issues related to DNS operations and DNS security. So we're planning a couple of courses under this track as well. And this is a 3-year project, so we're not going to end it by this month. We still have a lot of things to cover over the next couple of years in order to get this center off the ground. So I'll be happy to talk to you in detail about what ICANN does and what this project is aimed at. Thank you.
My name is Ali. I'm a PhD holder in the field of computer networking. I work here in LTI as instructor for networking and TCP/IP and such things, and I'm a department manager as well for networking and information security.
My name is Maria Saini. I'm from Bogaldera for intellectual property. I am head of department for trademarks and domain names. My work is daily correspondence for the clients to register the domain names.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm Present Aboza. First, I'm a lawyer, but I'm working for Talaba as a deputy trademark deputy manager. I've been working now for 5 years in domain names registration. We are agents for our clients to register the domain name through the UN or a voted form for those functions.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joey Escobar. I'm from Benin, working in ISP. I've been working in the field of internet service provider since 2001, and I've been working with SSL, with the ISP in Benin for 5 years now. And you might think I look like a different nationality. Yes, I'm from the Philippines, but I'm working in Benin for this industry.
Good morning, everyone. My name is David from Nigeria Internet Registration Association. I'm the CEO there, and I am interested in growing our domain name business. We don't have that many domain names, but we want to grow the number. So basically, get to learn about marketing and to grow the business and make sure that becomes the best, at least in Africa, if possible. Thank you.
So is it the registry or?
No, we're CCTLD.ng.cctld.
Okay. We can give you a simple way to grow your numbers.
Good.
EPP.
Good morning, all. My name is Jane Annie. I'm also from Nigeria. I work with NIRA, that's the Nigerian Internet Registration Association. I'm a lawyer by training. I just joined NIRA in November, about 6 months now. No, 5 months now, I think. I'm the head of corporate services. I'm here basically to fast track my learning, in the DNS industry. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I am Tarek Rez. I am an instructor here in ITI, teaching for students. I am from infrastructure department.
My name is Marquez. I'm graduated from computer and information technology faculty. I'm here in ITI as an instructor for this and Linux administration. So I'm here to engage my technical background with
I am Abdulmanan Galila from National Telecom Regulatory Authority of Egypt, working as Deputy Manager of the Master Registry. I am an engineer. My expectation about this course may be all our hands in the growth of business development in DNS industry and center in this field.
Good morning, Mohammed Salah from NTRA of Egypt. I have been for about 5 years in NTRA, working as operation manager for .NET registry. My main experience or my most experience is a technical one, so I'm trying to increase my policy on registry.
Hi, my name is Neil Rashid. I'm from a data center company. I've been working as a sales at Link.Mac at first, but 3 years ago I started to work with data center as an online account manager. Actually, I'm here because I wanted to know more info about the DNS and all the marketing and this stuff to be able to put our sales number in the center. So I hope,
I'm Antoine Yameuro. I'm from Burkina Faso. I work for the National Telecommunication Authority. For the time, all DNS activities are managed by the registry, because the Telecommunication Authority is also the DNS registry. And our next step is to open this activity to private sector. So I'm here to learn all the opportunities that we can lead to this people.
Hi, my name is Abdelhamid Muhammad. I work for National Telecom Regulatory Authority of Egypt. I'm a member of DOT-MAS operation, register operation team. So also my background is technical, and I want to learn more about the business.
my name is Heidi. I also work at the National Telecom Regulatory Authority of Egypt. I'm the Executive Director for International Technical Coordination. I have a technical background by graduation. I'm an engineer, but I've been moving into policies and other things later. And like Bahir mentioned, the NTRA is partnering with the ICANN to establish the DNS Center, ultimately to serve not only Egypt but also both regions, the Middle East and Africa. So, and we count on your contribution and having you on board with us on this center. So, thank you all for coming.
Hi, I am Mohammed Salem. I am from I2I.
I'm working at I2I as a system administrator. I'm responsible for reserving all domain names that we want to host in our websites. So my background is a technical background. I'm here to enhance my knowledge about DNS.
Hi everyone, I'm Awad Samir. I'm a technical support manager. I work here in ITI. My background is technical, and I'm responsible for provide all IT service in this building.
Hi, my name is Mohammed Tabri. I'm a senior system engineer at T-Data. I'm part of a team where we are responsible for the caching and authoritative, mostly all the technical operations of the DNS within the company. And today we are coming to, have some knowledge about the the business perspective about the DNS.
Hello, I'm Mohammed Ali, senior system engineer in T-Data, ISP, Egyptian ISP. I work with Mohammed in the same team. We are responsible for the technical part of various DNS systems in T-Data, and I'm here to learn about non-technical aspects of DNS, regulation, legal stuff, business, and
okay. Thanks. Good morning. My name is Taha Mansour, working as data center supervisor in T-Data with the same team, Mohammed and Ali.
Walid Asim, web application developer for telco service and digital marketing, previously in Link.net. My expectation from the workshop to know more about domain name industry and DNS, to develop the market for ccTLD.eg and IDN ccTLD.mas.
My name is Muhammad Khalil. I think I am the youngest here. I am a fresh graduate from Cairo University. My background was communication and electronics engineering, and I am a research assistant in the field of information security at Nile University. And my expectation is to know the interaction between DNS industry and business overview.
Good morning, I'm Christine Abida. I'm in telecom service planning at the National Telecom Regulatory Authority of Egypt. I've been working for the government of Egypt for 20 years. I've been I did very early on DNS registrations and DNS policies, but now I'm moving into more policy. I'm not technical anymore. And I'm part of the team that is facilitating the launch of the DNS Entrepreneurship Center, and my expectation is for this very first course of the center to kickstart the launch activities and to be very successful.
Great. Thank you, everybody. That's a great introduction. So it really gives us a great idea of your background. It does seem like you have a very technical background, a lot of ccTLD background as well. We're going to talk in a second about ICANN. So a lot of acronyms. So anytime we say an acronym, raise your hand and ask us if you're not sure what the acronym stands for. But ICANN is the Internet Corporation for Assigning Names and Numbers. You're going to hear a lot about that. Has anyone here been to an ICANN meeting before? So we've got 3. Does anyone belong to other technical groups like the Internet Society? Are there any groups or associations that people belong to, ISPs, things like that? Okay.
Did you write music?
Anyone been to a RIPE meeting? You know what RIPE is?
So Egypt is part of AFRINIC.
AFRINIC meetings?
They're not all Egyptian.
Well, the rest are Africans.
You know, right covers parts of Africa as well. Of course, our covers Middle East.
Middle East.
Yeah. All right. So,
okay.
So the first day, it's important for you to understand what's happening with DNS because it's a. You look at the history, which we'll get into. It came out of the U.S. government as a defense project, and in the 90s they decided to so-called privatize that. The transition is still in process. It's still pretty much controlled by different parts of the U.S. government, but ICANN was formed to help privatize it, help to introduce new options, new competition into the marketplace. let me just bring up, Michaela's going to give you a quick overview of ICANN. And I'll bring up the slide.
Bring up the slides now, please.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, bring up the slides. There's a lot, the thing to be aware of with ICANN and all these other things is there are a lot of acronyms. The running joke within ICANN is, if you start any new project, you have to create a new acronym. Otherwise it's a failure. It does take a lot of time to learn all the acronyms. Some of them are obvious, some of them not so much. Some of them you read and you kind of go, what?
I'll make sure I got the right one for you.
Okay, so while he's looking for the slides. So ICANN Internet Corporation for assigned names and numbers. So there are two parts. One part is names, so domain names. The other part is numbers, which is IP addresses. So far, so good, yes? Now, Keith, the other thing with on the name side, ICANN has a lot of control over GTLDs, so com, net, org, all of those. With CCTLDs, the country codes, not so much. The ICANN relationship with country codes is more, how can I be politically correct, lightweight, coordinating. It's not, ICANN cannot tell the .eg registry what to do, which is why the .eg registry is very happy. So what ICANN acts as a kind of a coordination, a place where the country code managers can come together and they can share experiences and they can talk about things, but ICANN, the corporation, cannot say to a country code, oh, you must do this. They can say, it would be nice if you did this. Could you please do this? And the country code people might go, yeah, okay, we'll do it because we want to. There has been some work at the kind of security stuff, say with the Configure virus a couple of years ago, where a lot of the country codes worked together to block domain names that were going to be used for running botnets and things like that. For us as registrars, we are regulated by ICANN, so we have a contract with ICANN. The registries, so that's like say .com, VeriSign, they have a contract with ICANN. Country codes don't. It's important to understand that. I'm going to end up breaking my neck, aren't I? Excellent. Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point because I know a lot of you are from CCTLDs, and some of you might have a contract with ICANN, some don't, right? So it's an interesting dynamic, especially when you try to decide on a business level what the new top-level domains will mean to your existing registry. And so I think it'll be an interesting topic this week to find out how you coexist with the new top-level domains, how that might be impacting your local market.
Okay, so this is, look, ICANN produces a lot of slides and documents to try to explain what it does. So what does ICANN do? To reach another person on the internet, you have to type in an address. I mean, this stuff you know. I think this is, you understand the idea that an IP address, a host name, a domain name. We can't remember all the IP addresses, so domain names map IPs. So back in the 90s, that's Postel, I see, isn't it? Yeah, see, I'm too young to remember Postel. You're older, you might remember it. So prior to the establishment of ICANN, it was all run by this guy called John Postel. There's some interesting stories you can hear about. Some country codes were assigned to people in places nothing to do with the country. So then ICANN was formed in 1998, and this is where it gets interesting. Not-for-profit corporation dedicated to keeping the internet secure, stable, and interoperable. What the hell does that mean? Well, secure, we all kind of understand that. Stable, so it should work. interoperable. What does that mean?
I think this is kind of they added it more recently, because originally they were all about security and stability. Interoperable, they're talking about, they don't want countries like China or Russia to create their own DNS.
So the thing is, if you look at, okay, so China is one example. It's not the only one. You've seen this in various countries over the last couple of years where the government says, oh my God, internet, bad things, evil. So what they'll do is they will try to shut down the internet in those countries or restrict it, which goes against what people like us believe in. We want it to be open, everybody should have access to everything. So the ICANN is the key thing here is coordinates, allocation and assignment of 3 sets of unique identifiers of the internet. So the domain names, but only the GTLDs really. IP addresses, which we understand, and protocol parameters, which is to do with things like FTP lives on a particular port, DNS lives on another port. Operation and evolution of the DNS root name server system. God, that's a mouthful. Who likes these slides? So for the DNS to work, so that you can get to it from your computers here in Egypt to a website in the US or in Ireland, you've got root name servers spread across the globe. How many root name servers are there, Tom?
13.
13. Now here's the key question. How many actual physical servers are there? Is it 13 or more? More. Yay. And how are we using magic to do that? Called? This is awesome. Excellent. I can skip most of these slides. This is brilliant. Okay.
They know more than we do.
Hey, speak for yourself. God damn. All right. Policy development reasonably appropriately related to these technical functions. Okay. Good morning. Oh, I'm not a servant. He might be a servant. He's wearing a jacket. Okay, so ICANN's evolution. Oh God, this is really terribly exciting. 1998, Memorandum of Understanding of the US government. More board than staff. That's changed a little, to say the least. Sorry, you're going to get in the neck all week. You know this, don't you? Yeah. One office in Los Angeles. How many offices do they have now? A lot. Let's just go with a lot. 5 or 6.
You have them on the other side.
Oh yeah, so I do. Thank you. And no registrars. Now in 2015, the Memorandum of Understanding of the US government has expired. When they put the slide together, ICANN had 307 staff spread across 25 countries. So they have hub offices in Los Angeles, Istanbul, and Singapore. And then they have engagement offices in Brussels, Washington, D.C., Montevideo, Beijing, Seoul, Geneva. There are over 500 generic top-level domains, and there are about 1,000 registrars. So you'll hear people talking a lot. If you're really interested, you can learn all about the IANA transition, which is terribly exciting.
And was anyone around when ICANN was formed? Were you involved in that at all? So what the internet looked like back then, in terms of the DNS, is that there was a single company called Network Solutions. And they were the front end and the back end for domain names. The only place you could go in terms of getting a GTLD.
It's only for GTLDs.
Yeah, GTLDs have their own operation. So the goal of ICANN actually was twofold. They said, there's a monopoly here called Network Solutions. Let's break it up. And so let's give the consumer more storefronts where they can buy a domain name. And so the registry, which looked probably a lot like your CCTLD, was broken in half, the back end and the front end. And they said, we're going to provide competition to the front end. And the first wave, were seven registrars were created. So it's AOL, register.com. Network Solutions was broken off as a storefront for the front end. And then the back end was VeriSign. All right, so their first task was to break up that monopoly and allow choice for consumers to buy a domain. And today there's, as you'll see in a second, there's about 800 ICANN accredited registrars who are basically retailers or resellers. Their next task was to give competition to .com, which is seen as, again, a monopoly on GTLDs. And so what you've seen over the years, we'll get into that in a second, is they've introduced a lot more competition to the back end, .com. And so that's part of their mandate, is to help give the internet more choices on the front end and on the back end. And make sure they do it in a way that's stable and secure, which is what a lot of the debates are about. How fast or how slow they should be going.
And also what is stable and what is secure. Please, questions are great.
Yeah, I'm quite interested to know what is the relationship now between ICANN and the US government, because you said the MOE has expired. So what's the relationship like?
Okay, so now at the moment, now you're going to have to help us out with some of these things, but at a simple level, the MOU switched over to the affirmation of commitments.
Well, there was JPA first, joint project agreement.
Oh yeah, sorry.
And this evolved into
affirmation of commitments. So that at the moment there is still there is a relationship there, but the way I've tried to explain this to journalists is, if the US government's relationship with ICANN and IANA and all that has always been very, very light, because if you look at which domain names resolve on the internet, and you look at which countries America does business with, the .cu CCTLD for Cuba has always worked. Which is my explanation. It's like, look, Cuba is still online. Okay, it's only like they're online, and Cuba is kind of challenging, but still. That relationship with the IANA transition stuff, which is being discussed at the moment, yeah, it's a big, horrible, complicated topic. We could probably spend the next 5 or 6 days, and we wouldn't get even halfway through it.
Yeah. So IANA, you'll hear another acronym. IANA, I forget what it stands for, but it only manages what's called the root file, right? So it's a fairly technical, clerical type of operation. And so if you've been involved in a redelegation of your CCTLD, which I have, the process is you first you go to ICANN/IATA. IATA is actually a system. You say, I need to put in a new tech contact or admin contact for my TLD. And so they go through a series of tests to make sure that all parties agree to that change. So that's managed within IANA. And then from IANA, it goes to a part of the U.S. government called the U.S. Department of Commerce. And so that's a division called NTIA, where they'll look at the proposed change and say, okay, we're okay with this change. And from there, it goes to their contractor, which happens to be VeriSign. And so they tell VeriSign to update the root file with this change. And then VeriSign has the main root file that gets propagated out, using any cache.
Yeah.
So that's a technical tie to the U.S. government. And in fact, VeriSign not only runs Common Net, but they also run that root file.
So the ICANN structure itself, lots and lots and lots of acronyms. Oh, and don't worry, these slides, you can have them. I'll even put a little bow around them. No, I'm joking. So you've got, on the ICANN staff side, President CEO, the one that's Fadi Shahadi, and then the ICANN staff, all 307 and growing. Then you have, I've got simply down the left-hand side, the GNSO, which is the Generic Naming Support Organization. We are, as registrars, are the contract with ICANN. We are within the GNSO. So within the GNSO, you have GTLD registries, so VeriSign, affiliates, all of those, registrars, Circa, Black Knight, GoDaddy, etc. IP interests, so that's not IP addresses, it's intellectual property. So a lot of intellectual property lawyers, you have ISPs, you have businesses of all shapes and sizes, non-commercials, which can be academics, civil society, all fit in there. And the ASOs, what is A, is address supported?
Address supported organization.
Thank you. This is our translation from the thing. So the regional internet registries, so the IP address people, so For each region of the world, you have a different organization. CCNSO, country codes, we mentioned them. Not all country codes are members of the CCNSO for a variety of reasons, but most of them are. Most. How many members are there now?
150.
Yeah, so there's plenty of. Then, over at the top, you've got the GAC, the Governmental Advisory Committee. Oh, yes, they're fun. So this is where the governments go to play. And they cause all sorts of interesting headaches. IETF, so Internet Engineers, TLG, the Technical Liaison Group, then you have the root servers, security and stability, then you've got at large, and then you have a nominating committee that feeds people into these things. And this is all where like the board, ICANN's board of directors, and its governance is all made up. Sitting outside that, ICANN has an ombudsman. So if you feel that a decision or something within the ICANN ecosystem is unfair, you can go to the ombudsman. He's a nice guy. He drinks beer. It's awesome. And I don't think anyone's going to have any questions on that. Look, it's lots of acronyms. So how can you participate in ICANN? You can go to the physical meetings. You don't have to. Pretty much all of ICANN's activities are online, because hey, it's the internet. There's remote participation for a lot of these things. Some of us participate in working groups. You can do things, just via email. And of course, ICANN is part of a bigger ecosystem. Now, this one is a nightmare. I have no way, there's no way I'm going to even try to explain it.
And we're going to keep revisiting some of these slides over the week as well. But it's just trying to show you how all these groups are trying to interact. And the key thing is, another acronym is MSN, or multi-stakeholder model. They want everything to be grassroots from the bottom up as opposed to the top down.
So when governments talk, it's between governments. But the multi-stakeholder model is like everybody. Go ahead.
Yeah, so one thing also to say about this slide is that ICANN is its role in this ecosystem, or this multi-stakeholder model, is only related to names and numbers. There are many other players that do other stuff. I mean, ISPs and infrastructure providers, they provide services to internet users, business, and so forth. Regional internet registers, they provide policies and IP addresses. W3C, for example, for the World Wide Web Consortium for the web standards, IETF, ISO, and so forth. So, because some may think that ICANN is the internet. ICANN does everything on the internet, but in fact, there are too many other players that do other bits as well.
This is very important. ICANN is not responsible for the internet. It's not responsible for a lot of things. It has certain responsibilities, but they're quite narrow. A lot of the time you'll find that it could be the hosting provider, the ISP, somebody else who has the responsibility.
And so there are some technical issues like IDN, someone mentioned earlier, as a big issue. There are quite a bit of, they're still trying to solve some of the IDM challenges that they have today. So a lot of these other groups are very active in IDN, in WHOIS protocols, and so forth.
And there's a lot of backwards and forwards. I mean, a lot of people move between multiple parts of it. So if you're somebody like me who spends a lot of time playing in this space, I'm involved with ICANN, IETF, I've gone to IGF, I read W3C stuff, I'm a member of ISOC. I mean, you can play around in different spaces within this, do as much or as little as you want. And don't worry, you can have a look at that slide again and again and again. So if you want to follow ICANN's activities, they do put out a lot of information on Twitter. So the main ICANN Twitter handle is @ICANN, but they also put out stuff in specific languages. So there's one for Arabic, there's one for French, there's one for Spanish, there's one for particular regions, which can be quite interesting. I have no idea what Weibo is. What's a Weibo? Weibo? Never seen it before. Okay. They have lots of social social media, what we call it.
We are the Chinese kind of Facebook.
Thank you. So this is why I don't know. I'm not within that target demographic. The videos on YouTube can be quite interesting because they have a lot of interviews with people who are involved with things going on. And sometimes it's good to have an understanding of what's happening. Back to you, Tom.
All right. Thank you. Everyone doing good? All right. I'm going to keep going. I don't know if we need to have a break. We kind of got a late start. Does everyone need a break? Or if you know, restrooms in back, if you don't know that already, it is unisex, so lock it. If you don't want someone else walking in, lock the outdoor as well as the inner door.
What?
Sorry.
You paranoid.
I'm just being sensitive.
Okay. Paranoid.
One thing I want to mention in terms of the ICANN participation, there are the upcoming meetings. So there's one in June of this year in Buenos Aires, Argentina. There's one in Dublin, Ireland, right, in October.
Yes.
Then next year you have Morocco in March. So great opportunity if you can get approval for that budget to attend one of these meetings. And also there's a Middle East DNS forum, which was just held 2 weeks ago in Jordan. Next year, we're not sure yet, might be in Morocco as part of the ICANN meeting as well. So that might be a great opportunity to do both the Middle East forum next year and the ICANN meeting in Marrakesh.
And you can follow the ICANN meetings, like the one in June and the one in October. You can follow it all online if you can't come in person. So for example, when ICANN held a meeting in Egypt a few years ago, I couldn't attend for a variety of reasons, so I followed some of it remotely. Did the same for a couple of meetings in the past. You're going to say something meaningful.
And for ICANN meetings, there's also a fellowship program. This is a program that supports people from developing countries to participate in ICANN meetings physically. I mean, the link is there in the slides, but if anyone has any questions about the program, I can talk to them to you during the break.
All right. So now we're going to talk more about ICANN. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Regarding entities managing the internet, the ICANN, ISOC, IAB, IETF, IRTF, I used to imagine that the ISOC is managing IETF and IRTF and managing IANN, and above them is the IAB. I used to imagine this, that there is some hierarchy in the structure of these entities. I feel now that they are independent and that
they are independent. There is the ISOC runs .org. That's their baby, but they aren't in charge of anything else. There's no real hierarchy.
They are the organization home for IETF as well. Means that the money they make from .org, they fund IETF activities on IETF.
Yeah, but they don't own.
They don't own it.
No,
absolutely. So IETF still it's an independent kind of body or organization, but they get their funds and support from the Internet Society.
The Internet Society gets its money from selling .org domains. And there's no real hierarchy with most of this. I mean, there's kind of relationships between different things, like one thing feeds into another. But no.
Now we're going to get into some more details of what ICANN does. Hopefully the screen comes up okay.
If you're using Windows, I don't know what you're doing.
There we go. So did you want to talk about ICANN policy update?
That's not okay. I can do that quickly because Michaela already covered some of this stuff. So this deck was actually prepared by David Olive. David Olive is ICANN Vice President for Policy Development, but he's not here with us today. So I'm going to run through the slides quickly. I don't want to repeat what ICANN is because I think we've covered that. ICANN mission, this is what Michaela mentioned about ICANN's role in regards to names and numbers and policy development around this area. The policy development at ICANN, and this is the core function of ICANN. We do develop policy and then we do implement those policies. And when I say we, in the policy development part, it's not staff, and this is very important. It's community. It's Michele and the registrar constituency. It's Tom. It's others in other constituencies like registry, like intellectual property, like CCNSO, like the GAP. These are the groups that sort of come together in different setups in different ways, whether working group meetings, whether they do conference calls all the time, they have the mailing lists, and they develop the policy, and there is a sort of policy development process that I'm going to run through quickly. But once the policy is approved by the ICANN board then directs staff to implement this policy. So this is just a defined line between what we do as staff and what the community does as in the policy development part. And this is one of the, like the other slide which you couldn't talk to. This is one of the one-pagers. We tend to simplify things and do them in one page, but then they turned out to be more complicated. So, as I said, we have a lot of groups that work on different policy issues, still in the DNS or within the DNS space. And we call this model multi-stakeholder model. And the reason we call it multi-stakeholder model is that there are different stakeholders involved in the process, from governments, business, registries, registrars, civil society, groups, technical community, and so forth. Many, actually, most of the policies developed within ICANN, they involve more than one stakeholder group. So oftentimes you find, civil society, governments, technical community, CCTLDs, they're all involved in certain policy development. Like a few years ago, when the IDNs, the internationalized domain names, were in the process of having its sort of policy ratified by ICANN to have country names in different languages, like .Masr in the case of Egypt, almost all stakeholders and all constituencies within ICANN were involved in this process. The working groups that work on the policy development process, they usually belong to what we call supporting organizations or advisory committees within ICANN. And we have a number of supporting organizations and advisory groups within ICANN, and each one has a specific role, and I'm going to talk to this in more detail soon. This is the same kind of structure that was in the previous slide deck, but it was in a certain kind of format. This is just another way of displaying it. This one's new? Well, actually, yours was newer, but this one is the original one. So anyway, we have a board of directors that has like 21 members. And then a number of supporting organizations and advisory committees like ASO, the address supporting organizations, GSO, CCN, and so on and so forth. And those who sit on the board, they come through two ways. One is by being elected through these advisory committees and supporting organizations, and the other way is through what we call the nominating committee. This is an independent committee that selects people to sit on the ICANN board, and also to fill some of the positions on the councils of the supporting organizations. Again, there are too many details here, but the purpose is just to give you an overview about what ICANN is and how it works. If any specific questions, just raise your hand. I'll be happy to take any questions. Please.
I'd like to understand how the ombudsman works. The ombudsman.
Right.
Yes, how does it work? Are the decisions there final? I just want to understand.
So basically, the ombudsman is there to look into any complaint or any issue that anyone has with ICANN. A decision taken by the board, a email reply, or some sort of treatment by staff that the individual didn't like. So he or she. Another member of the community. I'm sorry? Or another member of the community. Or another member of the community. So they can go directly to the ombudsman via email. The normal communication will be via email. They can call them if they want. And then during ICANN meetings, the ombudsman's their own week, and he has his own office to meet people individually and to look into the case. I was just at the ICANN Istanbul office last week, and the ombudsman was visiting Istanbul for another business. He stopped by, he met with us very briefly, and one of the things I learned from him is that he looks into between 30 and 40 cases every month. And those cases could be related to him as an ombudsman and could be not. Sometimes he gets questions about things related to litigation between ICANN and third parties. In that case, he can't intervene, because if there is an ongoing litigation, then there is some other entities, whether courts or dispute resolution providers or panel, looking into those litigations. But normally he gets between 30 and 40 requests or cases.
It's more like administration, really. He is not a dispute resolution provider.
Well, he is, but I would say it's more of a mediator.
Yeah, the mediator is key.
Right. He really doesn't make any just binding. It's not like arbitration where they make a binding decision. It's just trying to resolve differences. People don't feel like they've been treated fairly by staff, and he tries to talk it through. So it's more of a soft touch mediation sort of thing.
Can we compare this to a sort of like the political point of view where there is an ombudsman, something like this, but they take care of.
It's the same role.
Yeah, the same role.
I mean, I took something to the ombudsman in relation to how registrars were being treated by ICANN staff about a year ago. Amongst the many channels I used to get this resolved, the ombudsman was one. And so the ombudsman will take that, assess it, and then might feed that into ICANN senior staff on the board to say, look, I've received multiple complaints about how ICANN staff are handling this particular situation. And eventually it was resolved, but not sure which
It's a complaint department, right?
Yeah.
It's where you can raise issues that you have without things to go.
And it's also meant to be neutral, sort of outside the main thing, so they're not going to just do what Fadi says. Don't look into his eyes, whatever you do. Sorry, Fadi's eyes.
So the policy development within ICANN is bottom up, as we call it, and bottom up means it doesn't come from the board, it doesn't come from staff, it comes from the community. It has to be developed through the community, and that's why we call it bottom up. So now looking into each of the supporting organizations and advisory committee, GNSO is the generic name supporting organization. You probably can talk to this better than I. GNSO is the organization within ICANN. And when I say organization, I don't mean like independent organization. I mean, this is the structure within ICANN that looks into policies related to generic top-level domains, GTLDs, not CCTLDs, GTLDs. And those policies may relate to registries, registrars, maybe. There are other constituencies like intellectual property groups, like non-commercial groups as well, trademarks and so forth. So again, a few years ago, we started working on the new GTLD program and developing policy for new GTLDs. So all these groups were involved. Today they're looking into issues related to who is policy and how to translate the who is data into other languages. And I'm sure there are other stuff that being discussed. Do you want to give examples of issues that?
We're going to handle the actual policy update after.
Okay, good.
I mean, the thing, I suppose, the key thing here is with the GNSO is it's a policy development organization. Registrars and registries sign contracts with ICANN, but the contract has two parts. One part is the written contract. The other part is that that as a registrar or a registry, you are bound by what is called consensus policy. The consensus policy comes from here. So if you want to change the policy, anybody can go through this. So that's where the other stakeholders feed into it.
Okay, and the way the policy development process works, simply, if anyone has an idea, has a proposal for something that requires a policy, he or she will start, socializing this idea with other members of the community, either within his stakeholder group or constituency, or maybe within other groups. And from there, there has to be a sort of like proposal, something that people can look into, read, and then a working group is formed to work on this policy issue. And working on a policy issue normally takes years within ICANN. The new GTLD policy took about 7-8 years. The IDN, introducing IDN for CCTLDs, for top-level CCTLD domains, took almost 3 years. And again, the reason this process takes time is that it has to be multi-stakeholder, it has to be bottom-up, and it has to be consensus-driven. And
basically, the key word you're looking for is it has to be a compromise.
Well, and this is consensus, right? Because consensus means that there are no votes, there are no that, people sit in the room and then a decision comes from elsewhere. The whole process has to be driven through community members and by consensus. And reaching consensus among various groups that have different interests normally takes time. And then once there is a policy sort of proposal or a draft document, this draft document is normally put online for the larger community to have the opportunity to review and to provide comments on, and ICANN has also a very sort of specific description of the public comments period. The document has to be online for a certain period of time, normally 60 days. Once the feedback and comments come from the community, an updated document has to be posted with all the comments that came from the community shown in this document, with explanation whether the comments were taken into account or not, and all this. The document normally goes back to the working group that works on the original document, and this process goes on until there's a final document that would then be submitted to the ICANN board for consideration. ICANN board will either approve the document as is or go back to the working group with questions or requests, and then this process also continues until the ICANN board approves the final document. Once the document is approved, ICANN directs the ICANN board directs staff to implement this policy. So the final step in this process is implementation. This is what ICANN does. The rest is all run by community. Any comments?
Well, this is the implementation. This is where it can get a little bit tricky, because sometimes people who are working on the policy don't know how things work in reality. So the end bit here can get a little bit messy sometimes. I think it's something that has to be improved on. Because it's like, oh, that's fantastic in theory, then you go to do it in practice, like, oh, that won't work. Because physically and technically it's impossible.
So the policy has to be updated and changing even after submitting.
Sorry?
So the policy could be changed or updated even after submitting.
Well, yeah, this is one of the things, that the policies should evolve with reality. So if you look at, the slides we looked at earlier, the history of ICANN, some stuff started back in, like, say, 2000. Like 15 years later, well, look, I mean, how many of you here have a smartphone?
All of us.
Yeah. How many of you have internet on your phone? All of you. How many of you have internet at home? Yeah, same thing. I mean, 15 years ago, we were using 56K dial-up modems. You know, the internet was a very different thing. So the policies around it changed. And you know, the policies change, the technology changes. So sometimes like, these policy processes take so long that by the time you finished it, it's like, oh, oops.
So Robert Bruce and
You have to start all over again.
And also the implementation itself, as Michele mentioned, is reviewed. I mean, so the process we had to introduce IDNC TLDs called Fast Track. This Fast Track process has been reviewed. Currently, we're implementing new GTLD program to introduce new GTLDs to the root. And before any future rounds of new GTLDs can take place, the implementation, not only the policy, but also the implementation of the program will be reviewed. So yeah, it's one of the things, you know, with ICANN that everything is subject to periodic.
Yes, and one of the reasons why we're spending a lot of time on policy is that one of the objectives of ICANN in terms of expectations of the internet community is that it be accountable and transparent in everything it does, right? So the policy has to give everyone an opportunity to participate, make sure it's consensus driven. One of the policy groups I'm on is actually called Policy and Implementation Working Group. And we're looking at what happens after the policy is done and then it becomes implemented. And what if people don't agree that the implementation is what the policy was designed for, right? And how do you make sure that when that happens, there's transparency and accountability for saying, hey, look, you didn't implement this the way we thought the policy was written. How does that feedback loop happen?
But the other important thing is that you know, the barrier to engagement, barrier to entry and all this is really low. Anybody who wants to can engage. But the problem at the moment is only a very, very, very small group of people do all this. There's a very small number of people on these working groups, there's a small number of people who submit comments. Yet these are policies that in many cases affect all of you. So if you give a damn, get involved, please. Don't come, you know, 6 months, a year later going, yeah, we don't like this. Get involved. Say, you know, it's a really bad idea. Perfect, that's input, that's useful. Or talk to your engagement man.
Right, Mr. Engagement Dopamine. Yeah.
Yes, he will tell you how to engage.
Right, and there are different ways to engage as well, and I mean, not all the topics will be of interest to you. I mean, some will be interested in some of the technical stuff, some will be interested in maybe IDNs and in some of the you know, security and so forth. And we've touched upon the consensus, sort of what consensus building means. So this is like a list of the current policy issues discussed at GNSO. I leave this to you. Are you going to cover this now or later?
We'll cover it later. Yeah.
You'll cover it. Okay.
Yeah.
So these are just, you know, examples of stuff that is being discussed. Okay. So we'll come to this later. How can I participate in GNSO? You can always, you know, provide comments to documents. All working groups are open. You can become a member. You can volunteer for any of the working groups. And if you are a registry, you can become part of the registry constituency. If you are a registrar, you can be part of the registrar constituency. I know that Palala Gazelle organization is a member of the intellectual property constituency of ICANN and so forth.
There's always some group you can join.
Right.
Okay? Always. Someone charging for it.
And here are the links to the GNSO website and the policy development process of GNSO. Now, CCNSO. CCNSO is like GNSO, but for CCs, for country codes. So EG is a member of the CCNSO, and any CCTLD can become a member of CCNSO. As Michele mentioned, the relation between GTLD registries and registrars and ICANN. This is like, you know, it's a contractual relationship. ICANN do have contracts with registries and registrars, but ICANN do not have contracts with CCTLDs. Some CCTLDs have opted to sort of document the relationship they have with ICANN. So we signed agreements with them or exchange of letters just to recognize our mutual roles. But CCTLDs, they don't pay ICANN any fees or money, again, unless they volunteer to do so, right? Right. Whereas registries and registrars, by contracts, they have to pay us money, and they do. So 93% or maybe 94% of our budget comes from registries and registrars. Of course, I personally say, well, this money comes from registrants, not from registrars. But I know registrars do not like this.
I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to provoke an argument.
Not for now.
which is always a dangerous thing to do with me.
Right. So, yeah.
The reality is, registries and registrars and some of the CCTLDs pay ICANN. Registrants do not pay ICANN. That's a statement of fact.
Directly.
Registrants pay you.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. It depends on your business model.
Right.
There are many registrars where we bundle services together. So we bundle domain names, hosting, and other things together. They're not discretely priced. Yeah. And if you think if I sell you a domain name for 25 cents, you're not paying for the domain name.
Did you have a question?
It's not a question, this is just a comment. Some registrars itemize the ICANN fees and it's billed.
Yeah, this is the thing. I mean, a lot of the American registrars put the ICANN fees in there.
Yeah,
It's a separate line item. Yeah. Europeans, we don't bother because, like, who cares? You know, we're charging you whatever it is for the domain. We're charging you for hosting, for the other services.
You typically see it when at a low-cost registrar. So GoDaddy is only charging $8. They don't want to mark it up if 18 cents, because that impacts their profit margin. So they consider that almost like a tax. You pay the ICANN tax. Whereas if I'm charging someone $1,000 for .bank, I'm not going to show a line item to 18 cents.
Who cares?
But also one important thing to note is the difference between policies related to GTLDs and policies related to CCTLDs. So ICANN does not interfere in any CCTLDs like registration policies or pricing or dispute resolution policy. Whereas the policies on the G side, there are policies that sort of govern how domains are transferred from one registrar to another.
But ICANN cannot decide on the pricing.
Right, that's right. But there are some caps thing, or
no. What ICANN can do, it's an interesting point. It's a consumer protection type angle. So the registrars for GTLDs are obliged to list prices. We cannot hide our pricing. CCTLDs, if I didn't want to publish my prices, fine. You can go complain to somebody. But under the ICANN rules, I have to publish my prices for registration, renewal, and also for the RGP, the restore. Thank you.
And what about the prices for the registries? I mean, GTLD registries, like, I remember at some point the very signed contract.
Some of the pricing is publicly available, not all of it. There's some quirks around that. I mean, it's kind of irrelevant, but there's things like the ICANN has no oversight over the initial registrar contract, but does for amendments. Which makes no
what
sense.
the contract says today, it does constrain VeriSign on price increases.
And that's because of VeriSign's position.
But no other registry is, a wholesale level needs to constrain their price.
Yeah.
But back to the CC's examples of policies that are being discussed within CCNSO, for instance, is something like the use of country names and geographical names in TLDs. So this is something that CCNSO, together with the GAC, the Government Advisory Committee, and others have been involved in. Something like IDNs, again, the IDN CCTLD and fast track is one of the examples where CCNSO would heavily involved. Who is data and how who is sort of protocol can be, not protocol region, the who is policy kind of thing. But I'm not sure whether this is more of a GXO, right?
No, hold on. Well, okay, you're talking about two.
I'm trying to highlight examples of
who is
CC policies.
All right, who is CCNSO acts as a kind of coordinator more than anything else. It's coordination where CCTLDs can talk. So at a technical side, there has been a move with a lot of number and name registries to move from traditional WHOIS to something which is more modern, which is more XML based, it's more programmatic, you can do things, more interesting things with it. There's no kind of binding policies in the CCNSO, really. The stuff around the IDN fast track and all that,
yeah.
That's specific.
And currently there is a discussion on redelegation of CCTLDs and redelegation policy. This is something also CCNSO together with the GAC are involved in. So these are the kind of things, but again, CCNSO does not get into the policies of each and every CCTLD registry in relation to registration or disputes and so forth. It's more of a global kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you go down below the CCNSO in particular regions, there are other organizations, so Center for Europe, TLD, Latin America and Caribbean. There's one for Africa, which I can't remember.
AFTLD for Africa and APTLD for Asia Pacific.
Yeah, so there's other organizations. Basically, it's an excuse to go to lots of meetings and talk. Lots.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the one I was referring to, the interpretation, like examples of policy-related work, interpretation of RFC 1591. This is the RFC on the redelegation, on delegation and redelegation, GAC principles on delegation and redelegation of CCTLDs, and the study use of country and territory names as TLDs. ASO, this is the Address Supporting Organization. This is the sort of IP or the Internet Protocol addresses kind of constituency. There are 5 regional Internet registries, one in each region, that develops, each one develops policies for distributing IP addresses and AS number, autonomous system numbers, within each region. In Africa, it's AFRINIC. So any ISP in Egypt would get autonomous system, right? AS numbers.
Yes, I have one. Very proud of mine.
So any ISP in Egypt would go to AFRINIC to obtain IP addresses and AS numbers. Other countries in the Middle East, they go to RIPE NCC. RIPE NCC covers Europe and Middle East, APNIC in Asia Pacific, ARIN in North America, and LATNIC in Latin America. The IANA department within ICANN manages the sort of like global pool of IP addresses, and they distribute addresses to, or blocks of addresses to regional organizations or regional registries according to a policy that is being developed by the 5 regional registries through ASO and then approved by the ICANN board. Once this policy is ratified, then IANA starts distributing resources to the 5 RIRs. Now, what happens within each region of the RIRs, this is the business of the RIR. The RIR also have their internal sort of mechanism, policy development process as well, to coordinate their work. They have some organization called Number Resource Organization, NRO, that does this. So those who are familiar with ICANN and who come to ICANN, they would notice that constituencies and supporting organizations on the naming side, like GNSO and CCNSO, they're normally more involved and more sort of visible maybe in the ICANN work than ASO, because most of the numbering, most of the policy work related to the numbers takes place elsewhere, takes place within RIRs and within the RIR community. They only come to ICANN to get the approval from the board, but it's sort of, they have sort of autonomy on what they do. So this is the way the policies work, the regional registries, and then they have the NFO, the 5 RIRs, they form an NFO, and then they go to ASO to get the approval on their policies from the ICANN board. This is the same kind of thing. Of course, if any of you works in like networking, and you would know that currently we're running out of IPv4 addresses, so the IANA pool is exhausted, and some of the RIRs actually also running out of IPv4, and that's why the next sort of move will be IPv6. So those who are in the networking field will know that implementation of V6 is like becoming more.
It's a major problem.
Well, yeah, a few years back, people would argue that, well, we don't want to, or we don't have to sort of migrate to V6 because we have plenty of addresses, we have other, technical means of going around, the shortage of IP addresses like NAT and all this. Currently, I think there is more interest, more people are paying more attention to this. You are a hosting company, probably have
For me, it's a major problem.
Okay. To do V6, right?
No, V6 isn't a problem.
That's good.
V6 is not a problem. Okay, the problem we have is getting more IPv4. Essentially, we can't. There is no more IPv4 in the right region. So until the more ISPs turn on IPv6, if you're trying to run a business online in Europe, IP addresses are a limiting factor. It's a stupid problem to have. I've got plenty of IPv6. If you want a few million IPs, no problem.
Yeah, and and running your network using both V6, V4, this is the dual stack kind of thing. Is it that difficult? Is it straightforward?
No. Well, it's not straightforward. Nothing straightforward involving networks. There's a bunch of network geeks down the back. They can talk more about this than I can. But no, technically speaking, the technology has improved. There are still some complications. There are certain things around firewalls and things where it works beautifully for IPv4, but it mightn't work as well for IPv6. But technically, it's not a problem.
The problem is a lot of the industry just hasn't migrated there for IPv6, right? So
it's the ISPs.
You may be working with someone who doesn't support it yet. So you're right.
I was actually going to ask you why you were interested in IPv4, IP addresses IPv4, when everybody else seems to be moving to IPv6.
Because my problem is the ISPs won't turn on IPv6. So anybody who wants to connect to any of the services we offer has to use IPv4. So I have to have IPv4 addresses. In an ideal world, all the ISPs would turn on IPv6, my problem would disappear.
So why don't they want to turn on IPv6?
Because they've got enough they say they have enough IPv4 addresses. Because back 20 years ago, before anybody realized that IP addresses were going to become scarce, a lot of the ISPs got huge allocations, huge. You look at, if you go to which way you go, I think somewhere on the IANA website, go into the IP allocations, you see some private companies were given crazy numbers. So many IP addresses that you could give an IP address to every single, I don't know.
So John Pascal, the guy that you have on the screen, he used to distribute IPv4.
We're not allowed to say bad things about him.
No, it's not that thing. It was, you know, during those days, I mean, no one would...
No one knew what was going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. So the problem now is a lot of ISPs in Europe, US, and other parts of the world, they have a lot of IP addresses, so they don't need to switch on IPv6, or so they say.
So why are they keen on getting other people to switch on to IPv6?
It's the ISPs.
Well, it's also, I mean, what I hear often from ISPs is that, you know, there's no, from business perspective, not technical perspective, from pure business perspective, they don't see the need. I mean, either they have IPv4 addresses, either they have solutions to work with the limited IPv4 addresses they have, you know, so they don't see an urgent need to do V6, right?
The percentage of IPv6 usage has been growing. If you go to Google has, I think, google.com/IPv6 or something like that, you can see the usage. So in the US, for example, it has been going up steadily because a couple of the big ISPs turned it on. You look in Europe, Ireland, oddly enough, is doing better than some other countries, but that's because our academic network turned on IPv6 a few years ago. So every single college student in Ireland is using IPv6, but they don't even know it. France, one of the major ISPs turned it on by default. Other countries, not so much.
Sometimes, sorry.
No.
Sometimes you go to some lectures and they show you the map of all those using IPv6 and they make you feel bad that you're still on IPv4. And it's like...
Well, you should feel bad if you're still on IPv4. IPv6 is the new black.
You want to buy IP addresses for IPv4.
I don't want to have to buy IP addresses for IPv4, but if you want to sell me something, we can talk about it. So I will buy them. I have no choice.
I think we don't face this problem here in FNAC. We have plenty of IPv4 blocks. So
you're the only region left with
exactly.
Yes, exactly.
You're the only region without this problem.
Yeah.
So the thing is, what we're going to see is a lot of companies like mine setting up big companies here just so I can get IP resources.
But the thing is, it's true. I mean, Affinix still got a lot of V4 blocks, but you know the situation Affinix is with today is simply the situation that NCC was like 10 years ago. So it's going to come anyway. And the fact is, the earlier you do the planning and the migration to V6 as an ISP, the better. I mean, the more your network and your operations becomes bigger, it would get more complex. So
eventually we will. Eventually we will.
Well, yeah. I mean, long time ago I was involved in some V6 sort of awareness work here in Egypt, and I used to encourage ISPs to test. That was like 10 years ago. So back then I used to encourage them to test the technology, and they did, and all of them now they have some test beds. They have some of the networks running over V4 and V6 and all this, but I think they're still reluctant to sort of make the move or the migration to V6, but yeah, it's going to come sooner or later. So we went through the three supporting organizations of ICANN, CCNSO, GSO, and ASO. The advisory committees, these are the committees that advise ICANN board on specific policy issues related to their work. So the Government Advisory Committee, it's a committee of 150 countries, member states, and 32 sort of intergovernmental organizations, either international or regional, and the GAC advise ICANN board on public policy issues related to DNS. I gave the example with country names and the use of country names in